Lisa Brooks sat in the back row of the training room, watching her classmates practice combat moves. She held her training weapon loosely in her hands, while the others moved with sharp, quick motions. The instructor, Commander Ryan Phillips, walked between the students, calling out corrections and praise. "Brooks, your stance is all wrong," Phillips said, stopping in front of her. "You're holding that weapon like it's going to bite you." Lisa adjusted her grip and tried to copy the moves her classmates were doing. She moved slower than the others, her actions seeming clumsy compared to theirs. Jake Martinez, the top student in their class, performed a perfect series of attacks that made the other cadets stop and watch. "Now that's how it's done," Phillips sighed, nodding at Jake. "The rest of you should watch and learn." Lisa tried again, but her movements still looked awkward. She could feel the other students looking at her with pity or annoyance. Amy Watson, who sat next to her in most classes, whispered to her friend Beth Johnson about how Lisa would probably fail out of the program soon. After the training session ended, Lisa walked to the ship's observation deck. This was her favorite place on the USS Meridian. The large windows showed the stars and planets they passed as they traveled through space. Most of the other cadets preferred the rec room or the dining hall, but Lisa liked the quiet of the observation deck. She pulled out her tablet and made notes about the day's lessons. While she wrote, she also watched the crew members who passed by. She noticed how Lieutenant Kate Sullivan walked with quick, nervous steps when she was worried about something. She saw how the ship's cook, Pete, always checked the food dispensers twice before leaving the kitchen. These small details seemed important to her, even though she couldn't say why. 3 weeks into their training cruise, the USS Meridian received a mission to visit a Zephyrian trade station. The Zephyrians were a reptile-like alien species that humans had been working with for about 5 years. Commander Phillips decided this would be good practice for the cadets. "Remember," Phillips told the group before they left the ship, "the Zephyrians are our allies, but they're still alien. Watch your body language and speak clearly. Don't make any sudden moves." The trade station was huge, with curved walls and dim lighting that the Zephyrians preferred. Lisa followed her classmates as they walked through the corridors, trying to stay out of the way. The Zephyrians were tall, with green-scaled skin and large yellow eyes. They spoke in hissing sounds that the universal translators turned into human speech. During the formal meeting with the station commander, Lisa noticed something odd. Every time Jake Martinez spoke, the Zephyrian's head scales would rise slightly and his tail would twitch. The other cadets didn't seem to notice, but Lisa remembered reading that raised scales meant fear or anger in Zephyrian body language. The meeting was going well until Jake offered to shake hands with the Zephyrian commander. As Jake reached out his hand, Lisa saw the commander's scales rise even higher, and his tail began to move in quick, sharp motions. "Wait," Lisa said quietly, stepping forward. "Commander Phillips, I think there might be a problem." Phillips looked annoyed. "Brooks, this is not the time for—" "The commander is showing fear signals," Lisa said, still speaking quietly. "Jake's movements are too fast and direct. In Zephyrian culture, direct hand contact is only for family members or very close friends." The Zephyrian commander's translator unit clicked, and he spoke. "The young female is correct. I was wondering if the male cadet meant to insult me." Commander Phillips quickly stepped in to smooth things over. The meeting ended successfully, but Lisa noticed that Phillips gave her a strange look afterward. Back on the ship, Lisa returned to her usual spot on the observation deck. She thought about what had happened with the Zephyrians. She had seen the fear signals clearly, while the others missed them completely. This wasn't the first time she had noticed things that others didn't see during their weapons training. She had watched how each cadet moved differently when they were tired or stressed. In their strategy classes, She could tell when their teacher was about to change the lesson plan by the way he arranged his notes. She saw patterns everywhere, but when she tried to point them out, people looked at her like she was imagining things. Amy Watson found her on the observation deck later that evening. "Hey, Lisa. Good catch with the Zephyrian thing today." "Thanks," Lisa said, still looking out at the stars. "How did you know about their body language?" "I mean, we all studied the same materials," Lisa shrugged. "I just noticed the way his scales moved. It seemed important." Amy sat down next to her. "You know, you're weird, but in a good way. Most of us are so focused on showing off that we miss the obvious stuff." After Amy left, Lisa continued to watch the stars. She thought about her time at the academy and how she always felt different from the other students. They were all so confident and loud, while she preferred to watch and listen. Her grades were average, her combat skills were poor, and her instructors thought she was barely good enough to be there, but she saw things they didn't see. She noticed details they missed. She understood patterns that escaped everyone else. Maybe that meant something, or maybe it just meant she was strange. The next morning brought an emergency signal that would change everything. Commander Phillips called all the cadets to the main briefing room. His face was serious as he stood before the large display screen. "We've received a distress call from New Haven Mining Colony," he said. "The signal is weak and broken, but we can make out a few words." The recording played through the speakers. Static filled the room, mixed with frightened voices. Most of the words were unclear, but one word came through clearly, repeated several times. "Apex." Lisa felt a chill run down her spine. She had heard that word before in her xenobiology classes. Apex predators were the most dangerous known species in the galaxy. They were supposed to be myths, stories told to scare new cadets. "We're changing course for New Haven," Phillips announced. "This will be real training, people. Stay alert and follow orders." As the other cadets talked excitedly about their first real mission, Lisa remained quiet. She had a feeling that whatever they found at New Haven would be unlike anything they had trained for. And for the first time since joining the academy, she wondered if her strange way of seeing things might actually be useful. The USS Meridian dropped out of faster-than-light travel near New Haven Colony. Through the ship's main windows, Lisa could see the small planet hanging in space like a brown and gray marble. The colony's lights, which should have been visible from orbit, were completely dark. Commander Phillips stood before the assembled cadets in the briefing room. His face was grim as he pointed to the display, showing the planet's surface. "Long-range scans show no life signs in the colony proper," he said. "But the buildings are intact, and there's no sign of bombardment from space. Whatever happened down there, it happened on the ground." Lisa listened as Phillips explained the mission. They would go down in small teams to search the colony and look for survivors. Each team would have 4 cadets and would be given a specific area to search. "This is real field experience," Phillips continued. "You'll have minimal supervision, but remember your training. Stay in contact with your teams and report anything unusual immediately." Lisa found herself assigned to Team Delta, led by Danny Foster. Danny was one of the more popular cadets, known for his confident attitude and high marks in combat training. The other team members were Beth Johnson and Alex Turner, both solid students who usually worked well together. "All right, team," Danny said as they prepared their equipment. "We've got the central hub area. That's where the colony's main operations were run from. If anyone's still alive down there, that's where they'll be." Lisa checked her equipment quietly while the others talked. She had a basic scanner, a communication device, and a small energy weapon. The weapon felt heavy in her hands, but she clipped it to her belt anyway. The shuttle ride down to the planet's surface was quiet except for the hum of the engines. Lisa looked out the small window at the colony below. The buildings looked normal from the air, but something felt wrong. There were no vehicles moving on the streets, no people walking around, no signs of normal activity. They landed at the colony's main landing pad. The air outside was breathable, but it carried a strange smell that Lisa couldn't identify. It was sharp and metallic, like blood mixed with something else. "Masks on," Danny ordered, though the air readings showed it was safe. "We don't know what we're dealing with here." The team walked through the empty streets toward the central hub. Their footsteps echoed off the building walls. Lisa noticed that doors were left open, and personal items were scattered on the ground as if people had dropped them while running. "Where is everyone?" Beth whispered. Alex checked his scanner. No human life signs anywhere in the immediate area. "But these readings are weird. There's something else here, something the scanner can't identify." Lisa stopped walking and looked around carefully. The smell was getting stronger, and she could see scratch marks on the walls of some buildings. The marks were deep, made by something with very sharp claws. "Danny," she said quietly, "we should be careful. Something made those marks." Danny looked at the scratches and waved his hand dismissively. "Probably just mining equipment. These colonists use all kinds of tools." But Lisa knew that mining equipment didn't make marks like that. The scratches were too organic, too random. They looked like the marks a large animal might make. The central hub was a tall building in the middle of the colony. The main doors were wide open, and the lobby was empty except for scattered papers and overturned furniture. The team's footsteps sounded loud in the silence. "Emergency power is still working," Alex noted, looking at his scanner. "Main power went out about 3 days ago, but the backup systems are still running." They took the elevator to the upper floors where the colony's control center was located. The doors opened to reveal a scene of chaos. Computer screens were smashed, chairs were overturned, and there were more of those deep scratch marks on the walls. "What could have done this?" Beth asked, her voice shaking slightly. Lisa bent down to examine something on the floor. It was a piece of torn fabric, but it was covered in a dark substance that she was sure was blood. The smell was much stronger here, and she could hear a faint sound coming from somewhere deeper in the building. "Did you hear that?" she asked. The others stopped and listened. There it was again, a low rumbling sound that seemed to come from the walls themselves. "It's probably just the building settling," Danny said, but his voice didn't sound as confident. As before, they continued searching the control center, but found no survivors. The computers were too damaged to provide any useful information. Lisa noticed that the damage wasn't random. Someone or something had specifically targeted the communication equipment and the main data storage units. Whatever happened here? They didn't want anyone calling for help, she said. The rumbling sound came again, closer this time. Lisa felt the hair on the back of her neck stand up. Every instinct in her body was telling her to run, but she forced herself to stay calm. "We should check the lower levels," Danny decided. "Maybe there are survivors hiding in the basement areas." Lisa wanted to argue, but she knew Danny wouldn't listen to her. They took the elevator down to the building's lowest level. The doors opened to reveal a long corridor with doors on both sides. The emergency lighting cast strange shadows on the walls. They had only walked a few steps when Lisa heard it, a sound that made her blood freeze. It was a low growl, like a giant cat, but deeper and more threatening than any animal she had ever heard. "We need to leave," she said quietly. "Right now." Before anyone could respond, a shadow moved at the far end of the corridor. It was huge, easily 8 feet tall, and it moved with a fluid grace that was both beautiful and terrifying. The creature stepped into the light, and Lisa got her first clear look at an apex predator. It was covered in scales that were so black they seemed to absorb light. Its arms were long and muscular, ending in hands with claws that were at least 6 inches long. Its head was elongated, with a mouth full of sharp teeth and eyes that glowed with an inner light. Danny tried to raise his weapon, but his hands were shaking so badly he couldn't aim. Beth and Alex were frozen in place, unable to move or speak. Lisa could feel the creature's presence like a physical weight pressing down on her. But instead of panicking, Lisa did something that surprised everyone, including herself. She took a slow step backward, keeping her eyes on the creature. She didn't run, didn't scream, and didn't reach for her weapon. "Don't move," she said quietly to her teammates. "Don't make any sudden movements. Just back away slowly." The apex predator tilted its head, studying her with those glowing eyes. It took a step forward, and Lisa took another step back. She could feel her heart beating fast, but she kept her breathing steady and her movements calm. "Follow my lead," she whispered. Move slowly toward the elevator. Step by step, the team backed down the corridor. The creature followed them, but it didn't attack. Instead, it seemed curious about Lisa's behavior. Its head moved from side to side as it watched her, like it was trying to understand something. They reached the elevator, and Lisa pressed the button to call it. The doors opened, with a soft ding that sounded incredibly loud in the silence. The team stepped inside, and Lisa was the last to enter. Still facing the creature dot as the doors began to close, the apex predator made a sound that was almost like a purr. It was still watching Lisa with those strange, glowing eyes. The elevator rose to the ground floor, and the team ran for the exit. They didn't stop running until they reached their shuttle. Only when they were back in the air did anyone speak. "What was that thing?" Beth asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "An apex predator," Lisa said. "I've seen pictures in xenobiology class, but I never thought they were real." Danny was pale and shaking. "It could have killed us all. Why didn't it attack?" Lisa thought about the creature's behavior, how it had watched her with such intelligence. "I don't think it saw us as a threat. We backed away slowly, showed submission. Maybe that's what saved us." But even as she said it, Lisa knew there was something more. The way the creature had looked at her, studied her. It was like it recognized something in her that she didn't even recognize in herself. As their shuttle returned to the USS Meridian, Lisa looked back at the colony one more time. She had, feeling that her encounter with the apex predator was just the beginning of something much bigger and more dangerous than any of them could imagine. Back on the USS Meridian, the briefing room was filled with tension. 6 teams had gone down to New Haven Colony, but only 4 had returned. Team Charlie had lost 2 members, and Team Bravo had lost 1. The survivors sat in chairs, some shaking, others staring at nothing. Commander Phillips stood at the front of the room with Dr. Peter Chong, the ship's xenobiologist. Dr. Chong was a thin man with nervous hands who specialized in studying alien species. "What we're dealing with," Dr. Chong said, "are creatures that most of us thought were myths. Apex predators are the most dangerous known species in the galaxy. They've been responsible for destroying entire colonies." Lisa listened as Dr. Chong explained what little was known about the creatures. They were intelligent, possibly more intelligent than humans. They had advanced technology but seemed to prefer close combat. Most importantly, no one had ever survived a direct encounter with them. "That's not entirely true," Commander Phillips said. "We have survivors here. I want to know why some teams lost people while others didn't." The debriefing began with Team Alpha, led by Jake Martinez. They had encountered 2 apex predators in the colony's mining section. Jake described how the creatures had attacked without warning, killing 2 cadets before the rest of the team could escape. "They were fast," Jake said, his voice shaking. "Faster than anything I've ever seen. We didn't have a chance to fight." back, Team Charlie had a similar story. They had been searching the residential area when 3 apex predators appeared. The creatures had killed 2 cadets and injured another before the team managed to reach their shuttle. But Lisa noticed something in the survivor stories. In each case, there had been a moment when the attack paused. Team Alpha's surviving members had all been looking at the ground when the creatures stopped their assault. Team Charlie's survivors had all been moving very slowly when they escaped. Dr. Chang asked detailed questions about the creature's behavior, but Lisa could tell he was missing something important. The other survivors were too traumatized to give clear answers about the creature's actions. After the formal debriefing, Lisa approached some of the survivors privately. She found Sam Cooper from Team Alpha sitting alone in the mess hall, staring at his untouched food. "Sam," she said quietly, sitting down across from him, "can you tell me exactly what happened when the creatures stopped attacking?" Sam looked up at her with haunted eyes. "Why do you want to know? You weren't there. You don't know what it was like." "I encountered one too," Lisa said, "but my team all survived. I'm trying to understand why." Sam was quiet for a long moment. Then he said, "I was looking at the ground when it happened. I was so scared I couldn't look up. When I finally did, the creatures were just watching us, like they were deciding something." Lisa found similar stories from the other survivors. Mary Foster from Team Charlie had been moving very slowly because she was injured. The creatures had paused when they saw her careful movements. Tom Bradley from Team Bravo had been breathing heavily from running, but when he forced himself to breathe slowly, the creature that was chasing him had stopped. A pattern was forming in Lisa's mind. The apex predators weren't mindless killers. They were making decisions based on how their victims behaved. Fast movements and signs of panic seemed to trigger their hunting instincts. Slow, controlled behavior made them pause. Lisa spent the next day researching everything she could find about apex predators. The ship's computer had very little information, but she found references to them in old exploration reports. In every case, the creatures had appeared suddenly, attacked with incredible violence, and then disappeared. But there were inconsistencies in the reports. Some described the creatures as savage beasts, while others mentioned signs of intelligence and technology. Some reports said the creatures attacked everything they encountered, while others described them as selective in their targets. Dr. Chong found Lisa in the ship's library, surrounded by data tablets and research notes. "Cadet Brooks," he said, "you've been researching the apex predators. Have you found anything useful?" Lisa looked up from her notes. "I think they're testing us, Dr. Chung. They're not just hunting, they're evaluating." Dr. Chung sat down next. To her, "What do you mean?" "Look at the patterns," Lisa said, showing him her notes. "They attack teams that show fear and panic, but they hesitate when people move slowly and stay calm. It's like they're judging whether we're worth hunting." Dr. Chong studied her research. "That's an interesting theory, but it assumes a level of intelligence that we've never confirmed." "What if we have confirmed it, but we just didn't recognize it?" Lisa asked. "What if every attack has actually been a test?" Before Dr. Chong could respond, alarms began sounding throughout the ship. Commander Phillips's voice came over the intercom. "All hands to battle stations. We have multiple contacts approaching our position." Lisa and Dr. Chong rushed to the bridge. The main screen showed space around the USS Meridian, with several large objects moving toward them. The objects were unlike any ships Lisa had ever seen. They were organic-looking, with curved surfaces that seemed to shift and change. "6 vessels," reported Lieutenant Kate Sullivan. "They're not responding to our communication attempts." Commander Phillips studied the screen. "Are they apex predator ships?" "Unknown," Sullivan replied. "But they're definitely not human or any known alien design." Lisa watched the approaching ships with growing understanding. They're coming to evaluate us again. This time, they want to test the whole ship. Phillips looked at her. What are you talking about, Cadet? The colony was just the first test, Lisa said. They sent individuals to see how we react to danger. Now they're sending their ships to see how we react to a larger threat. That's impossible, Phillips said. These creatures are just animals. No, they're not, Lisa said firmly. They're highly intelligent, and they've been studying us. Every encounter has been a test to see if we're predators or prey. Dr. Chong stepped forward. Sir, I think Cadet Brooks might be right. Her research shows clear patterns in the creature's behavior that suggest intelligence and purpose. The ship shook as something hit the hull. Not weapons fire, but something else. The lights flickered for a moment before returning to normal. They're not attacking, Lisa realized. They're docking. Phillips looked at the tactical display. Impossible. Our hull is intact. But Lisa was already moving toward the exit. They're going to board us. They want to test us directly. Where are you going? Phillips called after her. Lisa paused at the door to meet them. If I'm right about this, then fighting them will only prove we're prey animals. Someone has to show them we understand what they're doing. Absolutely not, Phillips said. Return to your station immediately. But Lisa was already gone, running through the corridors toward the ship's main airlock. She could hear Phillips calling for security to stop her, but she knew she was right about the apex predators. They weren't monsters. They were evaluators. It was time for humanity to take the test seriously. As she reached the airlock, Lisa could hear strange sounds coming from the other side of the door. Deep, rumbling voices speaking in a language that sounded like controlled growls. The apex predators were already aboard. Lisa took a deep breath and prepared to face the most dangerous creatures in the galaxy. She was either about to prove her theory correct, or she was about to die. But for the first time since joining the academy, she felt like she was exactly where she belonged. The airlock door began to open with a soft hiss. Lisa stood straight, breathed slowly, and waited to meet her fate. The airlock door finished opening with a soft click. Lisa stood in the corridor, looking into the chamber where 3 apex predators waited. They were even more impressive up close than the ones she had encountered in the colony. Their black scales seemed to absorb the light from the ship's corridors, and their eyes glowed with an inner fire. The largest of the 3 stepped forward. It was at least 9 feet tall, with scars across its face and arms that spoke of countless battles. Its claws were longer than Lisa's fingers, and when it moved, she could see the powerful muscles beneath its scaled skin. Lisa felt her heart beating fast, but she kept her breathing steady. She had learned something important in the colony. These creatures responded to behavior, not to words or weapons. She stood straight, but not aggressive, alert but not fearful. The lead apex predator tilted its head, studying her with those glowing eyes. It made a sound that was part growl, part purr. The sound seemed to come from deep in its chest, and Lisa could feel it vibrating through the floor behind her. Lisa could hear running footsteps. Commander Phillips and a security team were coming to stop her, but she knew they would ruin everything if they arrived with weapons drawn. Don't come any closer, she called out without turning around. And put your weapons away. Cadet Brooks, step away from those creatures immediately, Phillips ordered. No, Lisa said firmly. This is what they want. They're testing us to see if we understand. The apex predator in front of her made another sound, this one different from the first. It was almost like a question. Lisa realized it was trying to communicate with her, not through words, but through tones and body language. She took a small step forward, moving slowly and keeping her hands visible. The creature's eyes tracked her movement, but it didn't move to attack. Instead, it seemed curious about her boldness. Lisa remembered something from her xenobiology classes about animal behavior. Many predators used body language and sounds to establish dominance without fighting. Maybe the apex predators were doing the same thing. She straightened her shoulders and looked directly into the creature's glowing eyes. Not aggressive, but not submissive either. She was showing that she understood the rules of the game they were playing. The apex predator made a sound that was almost like approval. It took a step closer to Lisa, and she could smell its scent, sharp and metallic, like the smells she had noticed in the colony. This close, she could see that its scales weren't just black, but had a deep blue shine to them. The creature reached out with one massive clawed hand. Lisa knew that this was the most dangerous moment. If she flinched or tried to run, she would fail the test. Instead, she stood still and let the creature touch her shoulder. The claws were sharp enough to cut through her uniform, but the creature was careful not to hurt her. Its touch was surprisingly gentle, considering the size and power of its hand. Lisa could feel the creature's strength, but also its control. Incredible, Dr. Chong whispered from behind her. It's showing recognition behavior. It's acknowledging her as an equal. Lisa slowly raised her own hand and placed it on the creature's arm. The scales felt warm and smooth, almost like metal that had been heated by the sun. The creature made another sound, this one definitely approving Dot. Suddenly, Lisa felt something happening in her mind. Images began to appear, not her own memories, but something else. She saw flashes of other worlds, other species, and other encounters. The apex predator was sharing its memories with her. She saw planets covered in strange cities, with beings that looked nothing like humans or any aliens she knew. She saw these civilizations being consumed by something dark and terrible, something that moved between stars and devoured everything in its path. Then she saw the apex predators themselves, not as the monsters humans believed them to be, but as refugees. They were fleeing from the thing that had destroyed their worlds, looking for allies strong enough to help them fight back. They're not conquerors, Lisa said, her voice filled with wonder. They're running from something. They're trying to find species that can help them survive. The images continued to flow through her mind. She saw the apex predators visiting world after world, testing the inhabitants. Most species failed the test, showing only fear and aggression. These species were marked as prey, unable to help in the coming battle. But sometimes, very rarely, they found individuals who showed the right qualities: intelligence, courage, and most importantly, the ability to recognize strength without feeling the need to challenge it. These individuals were potential allies. The tests, Lisa said, understanding flooding through her. Every encounter has been a test. They're looking for species that can stand beside them, not species that will cower or attack blindly. The apex predator released her mind, and the images faded. Lisa felt dizzy for a moment, but the creature's hand on her shoulder kept her steady. She looked into its eyes and saw something she had never expected to see in a predator: respect. Commander Phillips stepped forward carefully, his weapon holstered. "Cadet Brooks, what did you learn?" Lisa turned to face him, but she kept one hand on the apex predator's arm. "They're not our enemies, Commander. They're refugees looking for allies. Something is coming, something that destroys entire civilizations. They need our help." The largest apex predator made a series of sounds that almost sounded like speech. Lisa couldn't understand the words, but she could sense the meaning. It was trying to communicate urgency, danger, and the need for cooperation. Dr. Chong stepped forward with his scanner. "Sir, I'm reading massive energy signatures from their ships. This technology is far beyond anything we've seen. Can they help us understand the threat they're facing?" Phillips asked. Lisa looked at the apex predator, and somehow she knew the answer. "They want to show us, but not here. We need to go with them, Phillips shook his head. I can't authorize that. It's too dangerous. No, Lisa said firmly. Staying here is too dangerous. Whatever is coming, it's bigger than these creatures. If they're running from it, then we need to understand what we're dealing with. The apex predator made another sound. This one more urgent. Lisa felt another brief flash of images. Dark shapes moving between stars. Worlds going silent, entire systems being consumed. It's already started, she said, her voice filled with fear. The threat they're running from, it's already destroying civilizations, and it's heading toward human space. The three apex predators exchanged sounds that were clearly communication. The largest one turned back to Lisa and made a gesture toward the airlock. The meaning was clear. They wanted her to come with them. I have to go, Lisa said to Commander Phillips. They're offering to show us what we're facing. This might be our only chance to understand the threat. Phillips looked at the apex predators, then at Lisa. I can't let you go alone. Then don't, Lisa said. But anyone who comes has to understand. We're not prisoners or enemies. We're potential allies. Act like it. The apex predator that had been touching Lisa's shoulder made a sound that was almost like laughter. It gestured toward Phillips and Dr. Chong, then toward the airlock. I think, Dr. Chong said quietly, they're inviting us all to come. Lisa looked at the three creatures, these beings that humans had feared as monsters. But now she saw them differently. They weren't monsters at all. They were warriors, refugees, and survivors of something so terrible that it had forced them to flee their homes and search the galaxy for allies. Commander, she said, I think we're about to take the most important journey in human history. Phillips nodded slowly. All right, Cadet Brooks, you've gotten us this far. Let's see where it leads. As they walked toward the airlock, Lisa felt the apex predator's hand still resting gently on her shoulder. For the first time since joining the academy, she felt like she had found her place in the universe. She wasn't just a failed cadet anymore. She was humanity's first ambassador to the galaxy's apex predators. The apex predator ship was unlike anything Lisa had ever seen. The corridors were wide and curved, with walls that seemed to be grown rather than built. The lighting was dim, but her eyes adjusted quickly. She noticed that Commander Phillips and Dr. Chong were having more trouble seeing in the low light. How can you see so well in here? Dr. Chong asked her as they followed their escorts through the ship. Lisa paused, realizing she hadn't thought about it. I don't know. It just seems natural. The largest apex predator, who Lisa had started thinking of as the leader, made a sound that she was beginning to recognize as approval. It led them to a large chamber in the center of the ship, where several other apex predators were waiting. The chamber was filled with holographic displays, showing star maps and what looked like battle plans. Lisa could see human space marked on one of the maps, along with dozens of other systems. Many of the systems were marked with a dark red symbol that made her feel cold inside. Destroyed worlds, she said quietly. All of these systems have been destroyed. The leader made a series of sounds to the other apex predators. Lisa couldn't understand the words, but she could sense the meaning. They were discussing her, and the discussion was positive. Dr. Chong had pulled out his medical scanner and was taking readings. Sir, these readings are incredible. Cadet Brooks's brain activity is showing patterns I've never seen before. Her neural responses are completely different from normal human baselines. Different how? Phillips asked. She's processing information at a much faster rate, and her pattern recognition abilities are off the charts. It's like her brain is wired differently than ours. Lisa felt a moment of fear. What does that mean? Am I sick? No, Dr. Chong said, studying his readings carefully. You're not sick. You're different. These patterns suggest genetic variations that are extremely rare in the human population. The leader approached Lisa and made a gentle sound. It placed its hand on her shoulder again, and she felt that same mental connection as before. But this time, instead of showing her images of other worlds, it was showing her images of herself. She saw herself as a child, always watching and listening while other children played loudly. She saw herself in school, noticing things that her teachers missed. She saw herself at the academy, struggling with normal training because it didn't match how her mind worked. But the apex predator showed her something else too. It showed her what she really was, not a failed cadet, but something much more rare and valuable. Silent hunter, she whispered, somehow knowing the words. That's what you call beings like me. The leader made a sound of agreement. Around the chamber, the other apex predators were watching her with what she now recognized as respect. Dr. Chong looked up from his scanner. Lisa, your genetic markers are showing some fascinating patterns. Enhanced spatial awareness, superior pattern, recognition, and an unusually calm response to stress. These are traits that would have been valuable to early human hunters. You're saying I'm some kind of throwback? Lisa asked. Not a throwback, Phillips said slowly, beginning to understand. An evolution. A human who developed the same kinds of abilities that made these creatures apex predators. The leader made more sounds, and Lisa felt images flowing into her mind again. She saw other species from across the galaxy, and occasionally, very rarely, individuals among them who showed the same patterns she did. These individuals were special, able to bridge the gap between predator and prey species. They've been looking for people like me, Lisa said. Not just humans, but any species that produces individuals with these traits. We're the ones who can work with them as equals. Commander Phillips looked around the chamber at the assembled apex predators. How many species have they found? Lisa concentrated, trying to understand the images in her mind. Not many. Most species are either pure prey animals or aggressive hunters. Very few produce individuals who can think like both predator and prey. Dr. Chong was still taking readings. This explains so much about your performance at the academy. Traditional military training is designed for pack hunters, humans working together in groups. But your abilities are those of a solitary apex predator. That's why I always felt different, Lisa said. I wasn't failing at being human. I was just trying to be something I'm not. The leader made a sound that Lisa was learning to recognize as communication directed at her specifically. She felt images flowing into her mind, vast dark shapes moving between stars, consuming everything in their path. But these weren't the same images as before. These were recent, showing the threat getting closer to human space. They're coming, she said, her voice filled with urgency. The things that destroyed the apex predators' worlds. They're moving toward our sector of the galaxy. Phillips stepped forward. How long do we have? Lisa concentrated on the images. Maybe a year, possibly. Less. And when they arrive, nothing will be able to stop them except ... Except what? Dr. Chong asked. Except a coordinated defense by every apex predator species in the galaxy. That's why they've been testing everyone. They need all eyes, not subjects. The leader gestured toward one of the holographic displays. It showed a battle plan with multiple species working together, their ships and abilities combined into a single fighting force. They want to form an alliance, Lisa said. Every species that has passed their tests working together to fight this threat. Phillips studied the display. And humanity qualified because of individuals like you? Not just because of me, Lisa said. Because of what I represent. Humans who can think like apex predators, who can stand as equals with the most dangerous species in the galaxy. The leader made another sound, and Lisa felt a new set of images. She saw herself working with the apex predators, learning their technology and teaching them about humans. She saw other humans with similar genetic markers being found and trained. She saw a future where humanity stood alongside the galaxy's greatest predators as equals. "They want me to be a liaison," she said, "a first human to work directly with them, to help them understand my species, and to help my species understand them." Dr. Chang looked at his scanner readings one more time. "Lisa, these genetic markers you have, they might be more common than we think. We just never knew what to look for before." Phillips nodded slowly. "There might be others like you throughout human space. People who never fit in with normal society because they were built for something different." Lisa looked around at the apex predators surrounding her. For the first time in her life, she felt like she was exactly where she belonged. These creatures understood her in a way that no human ever had. "I accept," she said to the leader. "I'll be your liaison. I'll help you find others like me, and I'll help prepare humanity for what's coming." The leader made a sound that was definitely pleased. It gestured to the other apex predators, and they all made similar sounds. Lisa realized she was hearing something like applause. "Cadet Brooks," Phillips said formally, "by the authority granted to me as commanding officer of this mission, I hereby promote you to the rank of lieutenant. Your new assignment is as humanity's first apex predator liaison officer." Lisa felt tears forming in her eyes. After years of feeling like a failure, she was finally being recognized for what she really was as they prepared to return to the USS Meridian. Lisa stood on the observation deck of the apex predator ship. Organic-looking windows, she could see the stars that had always fascinated her. But now she saw them differently. They weren't just points of light in the darkness. They were worlds that needed to be protected. The leader joined her at the window. Without the mental connection, they couldn't communicate in words, but Lisa felt its presence beside her. Two apex predators from different species standing together against the darkness. When they returned to the USS Meridian, Lisa brought 3 apex predators with her as escorts and advisors. A sight of them walking through the ship's corridors caused quite a stir, but Lisa noticed that the crew's reaction was different now. Instead of pure fear, there was respect and curiosity. Commander Phillips called a meeting of all the cadets who had survived the colony mission. As Lisa stood before her former classmates with her apex predator companions beside her, she saw the recognition in their eyes. They finally understood what she had always been. "Ladies and gentlemen," Phillips announced, "let me introduce Lieutenant Lisa Brooks, humanity's first apex predator liaison and our newest hope for survival in the galaxy." Jake Martinez, who had always been the top student, looked at Lisa with something approaching awe. "I can't believe we never saw it before. You were never weak. You were just something else entirely." Amy Watson nodded in agreement. "All those times we thought you were spacing out, you were actually analyzing everything around you. You were hunting, even when you didn't know it." Lisa smiled at her former classmates. "I'm still the same person. I just finally understand what I was meant to be." As the USS Meridian prepared to return to Earth with its incredible cargo of new allies, Lisa stood once again on the observation deck. But this time, she wasn't alone. Her 3 apex predator companions stood with her, all of them looking out. At the stars dot in the reflection of the window, Lisa caught a glimpse of her own eyes. For just a moment, they seemed to reflect the light in the same way as her companions' eyes. She